I mean, there is a lot of talk about automation taking away jobs and other things. So at least at a highest level, our belief is while automation may take away jobs, but that is the jobs that we know today. But it will also create newer jobs, and technology will also create newer jobs and other things. So at least in our lifetime, we may not see that dramatic talk of people saying that there will be huge impact on jobs and things like that. But from a newer workforce perspective, obviously the workforce is entirely different from what we have seen in the past. Their aspirations are different. They live in a connected world. And today what we are seeing is, in some sense, a consumerization of enterprise. Historically, innovation used to happen in the enterprise and it used to flow down to the consumer. Now it is the reverse way around. All the innovation is happening in the consumer world, and it's forcing enterprises to react to it. And in some sense, it's not only consumer, same applies to employees as well, right? In their private life, they do certain things, they expect the same thing from a corporation as well. So employees are now today probably not as loyal as they used to be in the past. Today there is much more of instant gratification and so on. So from a corporate perspective, that's why it's very important to continue to be relevant to your employees, continue to give them avenues and opportunities, continue to recognize, as a company, we have very clearly said, if we have to be successful in our transformation, every 200,000 of Infosys people have to be innovative. Innovation is not the domain of a chosen few. You shouldn't have an innovation department with 1,000 people saying these are the only guys doing innovation, rest of us will do our mundane stuff. Our belief is everyone has to be innovative. There is an opportunity for everyone. So how do you ensure, how do you create an ecosystem? How do you make sure you simplify the process? How do you make sure that people get to spend a lot more time? How do you enable them to spend a lot more time on their core activities and so on? So those are the focus that we are doing as an organization to make things simpler, make it much more engaging for them to create an engaging workplace for them to create, so that they can contribute, they can drive innovation, they can drive much more value to the client. So those are some of the things we are really looking at.
Well put. And anything from your side, Krish, more specifically on if you see there is a changing demographics when you talk about the future of workforce and you visualize for Infosys?
Yeah, I think just when Pravin was talking about all the changes in the consumer, I was speaking to one of our presidents, and he was talking about the life of a salesman, in the US. He's sitting in the US, the guy is there, he gets up in the morning, he's on calls, he's busy answering customers and, talking to the technical team or the delivery team. Then he's in the cab. In the cab, he's answering his mails and kind of, working. He goes, meets his customer. The lounge in which he's waiting is where he's has to make decisions. That's where his space for design and creativity is there. Then he goes, meets the customer, and he's got to quickly respond. So the amount of pressures on people in terms of responding fast and getting the right answers is multiplied phenomenally. Everyone wants it fast. And these guys have to, and that's what we've got to enable them to do. And if you just empathize with them and put yourself in the day in the life of a guy who's meeting the customer, you got to say, wow, how do I really enable them to really respond to that fast? And I think that's one of the things that we've got to build a culture where we say, listen, we are there to enable you to take decisions, enable you to really ensure that the support that you need to meet the client's requirements is there. Yeah. So I think it's a fast-paced world, and we've got to really break some of our old rules and systems to really make this happen. That's really putting pressure on us. Well, that's the from one side. The other side is employees themselves. I think if you look at them, I think there are 2-3 things. One, I think, is there are many more options nowadays, and therefore their choices are wider, and they can make those choices. Number 2, I think they also, I don't think in the past they were listening to a boss or somebody. They were a little bit. The hierarchy used to work. I don't think it works anymore, because unless the boss is adding value or doing something, they don't respect bosses anymore. So I think they become rebels very fast. So the bosses and people who lead them have to add value, have to be seen as somebody who's kind of doing something more and not just, aggregating. So that's very important. Number 3, they're impatient. I think that because of these many options and because that they are now connected so much to the world that they know what else is happening, the level of impatience is a little higher. And that's due to this, both the social connections as well as they see so many things happening. So as a company, I think we got to realize and and try and help with these. The impatience, ensuring that the leaders who are there are leaders who are actually adding value and not really coming in the way of what they want to do. And number three is really ensuring that hierarchy doesn't play a role there, and we remove the hierarchy. And that's one of the things we've been doing. We've been trying to remove, we are delayering. We are saying, listen, as a company, if we have to be successful, as many employees of the company have to be in touch with the external world. So if you have many guys who are not even seeing a customer, not even in touch with the customer, then you become insulated and you kind of, you go on a world of your own. How do you get many of them in touch with customer? And therefore we are moving all the hierarchies and saying go and be in touch with customers and don't be kind of people managers or leaders there. That way we are trying to ensure that there is much more faster response and we remove the hierarchy so that the aspirations of people can be really met. So those are some things we need.
But you're certainly of the view that going forward, the equation between the revenue growth, the linearity of it, is going to get disrupted between the revenue growth and employee addition.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fine. Given that we are here in a conference which is talking about spirit of entrepreneurship, I had a related query, which something I'm sure internally you all must be debating and reflecting on quite a bit. There is also a view that as you begin to become large, obviously some amount of bureaucracy tends to set in. And the extension of that is that large organizations are not as sprightly, they are not as risk-taking, they are in some manner, they become slow. If you keep all that aside, the core of it is, how do you retain that entrepreneurial zeal in an organization of that size, right? And it's a challenge by itself. Is there, again, a method to how you all approach it? How do you actually ensure that it remains to be there?
See, I think I will probably repeat some of the things which I have already said. I mean, what you said is right. When you are small, obviously your agility and other things are your plus points. You are able to respond much faster. There is less of bureaucracy. But at some point in time, for you to be successful, you have to scale. And when you scale, you have to bring in process, you have to bring in policies and so on. Otherwise, you will never be able to replicate what you have done at scale without having these kind of things. So at times, when you scale, all this so-called bureaucracy becomes a positive future kind of thing. But suddenly when you deal with disruptive situations, again, it becomes a handicap kind of thing. So that is the reality of life and we have to deal with it. Different organizations have different approaches. For instance, when you talk to a Gartner, they talk about two-speed IT or something. So they're saying one slow speed and one high speed. Recently, I was listening to a talk by someone from McKinsey. He was talking about nowadays in organizations, he sees three structures. One is business as usual, second one is transformational, and third one is disruptive. Disruptive is something new. So they are saying organization is moving towards three kind of structures. But our belief, internally, our belief has been, as I said earlier, we want every one of our employees to be part of the transformation journey. We want every one of our employees to be innovative and so on. So how do we create an ecosystem which enables them to do that? And one of the things, I mean, while one of the things is about zero distance, which Krish talked about earlier. So this is something simple. It's not something unique. We have tried it in the past. The whole idea is how do you challenge status quo? How do you come up with new ideas? How do you go and tell the customer what you are doing is wrong? How do you build in creative confidence? And even within my 30 years of Infosys, I have seen many attempts. But the issue is, initially it will be a success, but sustenance becomes a huge thing. So this time the way we approached was extremely unique. So we said we came with a 5-point framework. We called some 1,000 project managers. We said first one is to look, learn, and improve. We said there are a lot of innovative things happening around you with your peers and so on. So why don't you look, learn, and this one? So there is no need for you to reinvent everything. There are a lot of interesting things. Can you learn from it and do that? Then the second thing we said is, can you come up with at least 2 how improvements? Today you are given a scope of work. Can you understand the concept? Can you come up with some adjacencies and come up with 2 new ideas? Third one we said is, can you come up with 1 how improvement? How can you, I mean, today you are using some process, some tools. Can you use something to become more productive, do it in a much more efficient manner? The fourth one we said is we have to articulate what you are doing, because end of the day, if you are not able to articulate the business value of what you are proposing, then there is no hope in hell to convince your peers or to convince the client kind of thing. And the fifth step we said is to convert, to close the loop by talking to your peers about your learnings of what you have done, what you have not done. So this is something we started about a year back with 1,000 project managers. And today, more than 90% of projects which are managed by Infosys, we have got more than 8,000 plus master projects. And 90% of those projects have an average 2 to 3 zero distance plan. Most of the ideas are incremental, but there are some good breakthrough ideas as well. We have also now, initially the focus was, first few months was on driving adoption. But now the focus is more on improving the quality of ideas than monetizing the ideas. And in the last couple of quarters, we have seen some 40 million of incremental revenue coming from zero distance ideas, which we have been able to sell to the client. So this is a huge success. And as Krish talked about, every month Vishal, wherever he is, we do a webcast where 20,000 and odd people participate. We identify some 8 to 10 managers at random. They get to talk to this 20,000 people about some of the things they are doing. So this is a kind of entrepreneurial thing that we are doing. Similarly, there is another, I mean, in our industry, you are aware, bench is the bane, right? At any point in time, we have some, at our size, we have 8,000 to 10,000 plus people sitting on bench and not really doing. How do you engage them and how do you get the best of them? So we started this Zero Bench initiative where we started asking people to give 2 to 3 weeks project. We asked people to sign up. Then we started using gaming techniques. We started creating a leaderboard. Every month we start saying these are the top 5 job contributors. These are the top 5 people who have fulfilled. Now we have started giving loyalty points which they can redeem in Infosys store and so on. So these are some of the things we keep on doing it. So it helps in driving the entrepreneurial spirit of employees. A lot of new ideas come. And most of this is driven by the employees itself. And more importantly, the side effect is the engagement. Engagement is huge. This has resulted in a huge drop in the attrition thing. So that's how we have tried to deal and continue to be nimble, continue to encourage people to be much more innovative, much more proactive, and drive value to our customers.
Is there, and again, it's a related question, is there anything from startups, and we are in a city which is increasingly being known as the city of startups, is there any element of that startup culture which you would like to see in Infosys? And if it was to be, what would it be?
Chris can add, I will start. The easiest one we did, we changed the dress code. So what Krish is wearing today is our dress code. You can wear anything you like. So that was the easiest one. But jokes apart, I think that was a huge hit because 6 months after it, when in our first ESAT after relaxing the dress code, the biggest change majority people appreciated was the dress code. So it is something trivial, but people really, and that is a sign of saying that, I mean, you can do whatever you like kind of thing. Krish, go on.
Yeah. No, I think, I was speaking to somebody who joined us recently from Google, in our Palo Alto office. And what he felt was, listen, this company is so big, but it works like a startup. Because it's about the decision making. I think the first thing that we have to do is speedy decision making, quickly getting together and decide. That's number one at the top. What we want to learn more from startup is really, taking more risks. I think that's something we want to, I think we should as a company do more and enable people to empower them a lot more to do what they want. I think those are some things that we would like to.
So let me stay with that. Is there anything about the startup culture which you would not like to be introduced in Infosys?
Well, see, I think we don't want to put them on this too much of this work-life balance or too much of getting burnt out. It sometimes if you're burnt out within a couple of years in a startup, then I don't think we would like that.
Other culture which we don't want to adopt is more losses you make, your valuation goes up. That doesn't work for us. So I don't think we want to embrace that.
Right. I mean, there is a prudence of a different kind which needs to be exercised for organization like yours versus startups. So let me just ask you one more question and then perhaps I'll turn it over to the audience. And again, Pravin, since you have the benefit of having been here so long, when you look ahead, 5-10 years from now, what is the Infosys of future is going to look like for you?
It's a difficult question. In today's world, difficult to predict next quarter. So you're asking me to say what next 10 months look like, 10 years look like. Uh, I think we will probably in 10 years down the line, we will be a much more decentralized company. We will be much more global. The workforce will be much more diverse than what it is today, with talent from across the world, across time zones, across geographies, and more importantly, talent spanning multiple age groups as well. So that's something. We will definitely have far fewer people than what we have today. We will have we'll have lot of focus on technology innovation, using technology to amplify and augment people's capability. Many things will probably change, but one thing probably which will still remain the same is we'll continue to be a learning organization, because that is something which has helped us in these 35 years, and that is something we believe will help us. Any institute you bring for longevity, you need to have the spirit of learning, and that is something that will stay constant, but a lot of other things will probably change.
Thank you. We could take a couple of questions from the audience if you have. We just have time for a few questions. So if there is a mic around, can get passed on, and just request you to identify yourself, and you can put your question to either of our panelists.
Or the moderator.
Hello.
Just keep it short.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Krish. Nice hearing you after a long time.
I
I'm Biswarup Goswami. People call me BG from Galaxy Surfactants, Bombay. This question is to Chris. You work for 3 great companies, Levers, Airtel, and now Infosys. So where do you see the entrepreneurial spirit the most, and which company you enjoyed the most, and why?
Putting you in a spot. Go
This
ahead.
is a very interesting question, because I think what I would say is that you enjoy things for many different things, each company you enjoy for many different things, and I've enjoyed all 3 companies for very, very different things, so that's there. See, I think entrepreneurial spirit is what? I mean, if I just look back and I ask myself, what does it mean? I think it means where your ambition is greater than resources, yeah? That's what it is. And I see that, in many companies that I've worked, I think that seems to be a common thread in terms of, your ambition is huge. You want to be this, you want to be that, and you want to really transform yourself. But the resources that you need to really do that, you don't know. It's sometimes. So that's where that brings out the opportunity and the thing. So I would say I've seen that at different phases in different companies. It's not that one versus the other. And I think at this point in time in Infosys, I used to see that. I think, there's a huge potential, a huge inspiring vision of where one could be. And the thing of moving towards that is something which is interesting. So I think that's what I would kind of say, BG.
All right. Please go ahead.
I'm Sonal from Titan. My question is, a lot, especially for a company which is scaling up or going through any sort of a change, a major focus is how to preserve or ensure that the tacit knowledge is not lost. So tools and processes and everything would, help to a certain extent. But how do you ensure that the core culture or the tacit, more importantly than the culture, the tacit knowledge, how does that get transferred, especially when it comes to the changing workforce?
See, it's about, in my mind, it's all about the leaders walking the talk kind of thing, because it's difficult to teach this one. In my mind also, it's the values that will probably remain constant and time invariant, but the culture will probably change. It's not, I don't think we should be wedded to one culture. I'm not saying that culture should change very frequently or anything, but we should be open to change the culture kind of thing. So I don't think changing culture is a bad thing. More often than not, sometimes we confuse ourselves between values and culture. Sometimes there is a very thin line, and that is a confusion I typically see even now when we are going through our own cultural transformation. Just because something was not done in Infosys and we are doing differently, it doesn't mean that we are foregoing our value system, because value system still remains constant, this one. So in general, I think when people, leaders act...
that's why I use the term tacit knowledge, and I started saying culture, but the focus was more on the something which is which comes more intuitively to people who've been a part of a certain journey, rather than the culture or the values, which is something which probably would remain more constant over a certain period of time. That's why the term knowledge or
No, I think, I mean, finally it's the same thing. You can't codify those things. I mean, if people see what are the traits that make people successful, the consistency in how they do things and other things, then people know this is the environment, this is what makes the people successful in the company and so on. So that is something, and if you see more and more people practicing it successfully and so on, if you create an ecosystem like that, that probably will play a much larger role rather than having a classroom trying to document or codify kind of thing. Finally, ultimately, end of the day, you have to walk the talk, and people will really, they will have role models, they will see what makes one successful, and if they want to be successful in an organization, they will also try to adopt those practices. As long as you do things the right way, then, and we have majority of the leaders doing it, I think that's something, at least in my experience, I see much more successful in making sure we have a good culture within the organization. Not sure whether I answered your question, but...
It's okay. No, thanks. Maybe one more question. Yes, you there.
Hi, my name is Raman. I'm from Deloitte. My question is, when you move from people to, say, bots in the future, because you mentioned that the same number of people will come down for getting more revenue, what specifically will you do in order to enable that change? For example, will you sort of retrain people, move them to different roles? Will you look at natural attrition, maybe taking care of some of the people to be reduced, etc.? How will you manage that change?
See, the first thing is obviously people have to recognize the value of using tools, right? So that is the first thing you have to drill into them, how it is important for them to use tools, how it will help amplify their own capabilities, augment their own capabilities. And in some cases, the tools will enable them to move on to a different job which is probably much more meaningful for them, rather than doing something which may be more mundane or repetitive kind of thing. So first is about appreciation, the fact that the tools is here to help them and not to harm them or anything. So that is the first thing. And the second thing, obviously, you need to tell them more about the tools and what is the value proposition of the tools. You have to, I mean, depending on the life cycle, I mean, if they are in the engineering, if they are in the software business, delivery business, you have to tell them how to use the tools and other thing. But if they are the sales force, then the training is much different, because you have to, people are used to selling services. Now they are suddenly, you have to convert them to start selling value, start selling tools and software plus services paradigm and so on. So it's more about today, once you have software and services, it's more about discovering use cases relevant to the client, contextualizing to the client and selling it. That is a much bigger difference than telling to, in the older ways of saying, I have a maintenance practice, I have an infrastructure practice and so on. So selling is probably much more complex in this new paradigm than on the delivery side. Delivery side is more about educating people in terms of how it will help them and how to use in their day-to-day work.
Good. I'm afraid we are running out of time, so we'll have to bring it to a closure unless there is something which is, there's a question which needs to be asked now, or we can actually take it offline as well. So maybe Pravin, this is one question. This is more of a personal question, which I have for you is, in your own long 30 years journey in Infi, if there is one moment you may like to just go back to and relive all over again in Infosys, what would be that moment?
I think I still miss my early days. Today, there is a saying, right, it gets lonely at top, so sometimes it is true. So I really, most of the good times I had was during the first 10, 15 years where I was part and parcel of the project teams and so on, a lot more hands-on. Over the years, I've also become in some sense an aggregator kind of thing, which today is looked down upon. But I really, most of my enjoyment was during the early days because we had a huge aspiration. Initially, the aspiration was being part of a team which will put India on the world map. Then internally, we had an aspiration of becoming a $1 billion company. So we used to have different aspirations which probably motivated us. And any day for me, working in teams, working with people, working together with people and all gives me the greatest motivation, all the fun you have, all the challenges and all, rather than alone trying to solve problems kind of thing. So if at all I want to relive, I want to probably go back, be a developer today with all the new technology and other thing, and be an individual contributor, not forced to be a manager and managing people and so on. Maybe that's what I would like to do.
Thank you. So friends, a big round of applause for both Pravin and Krish. I mean, they've been extremely candid and sincere in responding to a barrage of questions which I had. We talk about change and shift in technology. We talk about the changes in the demographic of employees. We talk about agility. We talk about how you can remain to be nimble for an organization which is growing and has grown large. I think we just got a very quick glimpse in what makes Infosys tick and continue to remain an agile and an organization constantly on the move. I'm sure there is a lot more which we can actually pick up from our two colleagues here, but the constraint of time prevents me. So thanks a lot for this opportunity, and more specifically, just the sheer candor with which you all responded to all the queries. And just on a lighter note before we close, yes, after a very, very long time, in this last 1 month, I've had a conversation where I have not talked about Trump or H1B, or for that matter, demonetization. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Kamal ji, our Director General, to please
a lot.
come and hand over the momentum.
Thank you, sir. Thank